good day, everyone? Thank you for tuning in today to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams, here on Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU. Also, we have our sister station, Smooth Radio, 100.3, Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. Also, we still have the 106.9 LP, WBIS LP, which is all now Spanish Christian radio. Our topic of discussion today is social media. But before I introduce my co-host and get to the topic, I just want to mention something to my co-host, our engineer, and to all of our people of God that's listening to this broadcast today. Well, for about 3 weeks in June, I kept having these silent conversations with God. Every time I would wake up, I would say, thank you, Jesus, thank you, God. I would be walking to my car and say things, to give God his grace and honor and glory. All for 3 weeks. And I kept thinking to myself, why am I doing that and what's going on? Is God trying to prepare me for something? Well, I was about to call my pastor one day and talk to him about it, as well as Apostle Jackie. But I didn't do that. And then I had an appointment with my neurologist. He is my new neurologist because my previous neurologist got reassigned. So I went to see him. He said, well, Mr. Johnson, first of all, I'm your neurologist today. I want to go over the CAT scan that your last neurologist ordered. So he put the image up on the monitor. He said, you see this entire region right here? I said, yeah. He said, 1/4 or 1/4 of your brain is damaged. I'm like, what? I was shocked. And I said, my exact words to him was, I said, you mean to tell me now, after 4 brain and head surgeries, I know I have a permanent injury on my cerebellum, but you mean to tell me 1/4 of my brain is damaged? He said, yes, sir. He said, now we give you a little test. So he started doing some stuff. And then he asked me, well, how do you feel? I said, I feel great. I'm a man of God. I might not appear to be a man of God because I'm not shaking a tambourine or just reciting scriptures to you. But just like the brain injury, a brain injury doesn't have a look or it has a color. But I have a brain injury. So I'm a man of God, and it's in God's hands. That's what I told him. Jackie.
Hey, Dr. Glenn, and to our listening audience on today. We are glad to be here. I'm glad to hear your testimony. You don't look like what you've been through. And so we are glad that you are here and glad to hear the positive words that you confess.
That's right, because I was telling him, that's why I don't look like I have a brain injury. I said, now, you're telling me 1/4 of my brain is damaged. I have a permanent injury to my cerebellum, but I'm still functional.
Oh, yes. Well, Dr. Glenn, our show today is on social skills, not social media.
Didn't I say social skills?
No, you said social media.
I did.
Now,
My
we
bad.
might talk about social media a little bit because I think it is very important to our subject with social skills. This new era that we've come into, there is a lot of things that happen on social media, and we're talking about social skills, which one of them is a form of communication or communicating, how you communicate with people, your social skills. A lot of times in the school systems, they use social skills with children, and those are things that need to be taught to kids. But believe it or not, there's a lot of adults that lack social skills and that need to work on. We all could brush up on them. I know even myself, when I was looking at this particular thing here, sometimes we've gotten into habits and different things, and we don't realize that our communication skills as we are getting older or in our home environments, a lot of times in our home environment, it can be different than it is in our public environment. And a lot of times we're bringing those bad habits and those poor social skills that we happen to use at home into the public place.
And I'm glad you mentioned what you mentioned because doing the research to get these documents together for today, I noticed A lot of these documents did mention some things about social media, but more importantly, it also mentioned a lot of things about childhood and children in school, and also autism. Autism was a big one. There was an astronomical amount of documents on social skills and autism.
Yes, definitely. And Dr. Glenn, I just want to say this because I work with children that have autism. I do know a lot in that area that is concerning social skills. Those are some of the toughest areas, especially for those that are nonverbal. But even doesn't matter if they're verbal or nonverbal, social skills is a big area
Yeah,
for kids that have autism
exactly.
or adults that have autism. They just tend to want to be, a lot of them tend to just want to be alone. They'll play alone, they'll be in the room with you, and they'll play in the room with you, but they don't often play with you sometimes. And so sometimes it can be very challenging, in that particular area. So we want to talk about communication skills and what exactly, I mean, social skills, what exactly are definitions and examples of social skills. So, social skills are essential in building both personal and professional relationships. Your social skills have a lot to do also with whether you can gain friends or maintain friends. If your social skills are bad, no one wants to be around someone that is rude, that doesn't know how to talk to you, that doesn't know how to answer, that's always taking things the wrong way, that is always on edge or angry or negative. Those social skills, have a lot to do with how you build relationships with other people. I'm talking about in your family too, as well as those that are outside of your family. Dr. Glenn?
Absolutely. And during the course of this broadcast, some of the things that Jackie mentioned, we're going to get to more of, but also want to mention I have one document that's entitled Constructive Feedback, and included in that is constructive criticism. Both of those involve social skills.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about also communication with people, verbal and nonverbal, because what your body language says is a lot. It says a lot about you with how you carry yourself and how your body language is. Some people they just look absolutely unapproachable. They look like that they're always chewing on nails, and then some people you have to really use discernment because the look could be deceiving. They could look mean and they could be the sweetest person, or they could look, like they have an attitude and they don't have one at all. And sometimes you have to break down the wall and get to know people and get in their presence to find out, how their real personality is.
Yeah, that's
And
like
so,
that day I was explaining to you how I met this group of guys, and they were saying how the police were racist. I said, well, have you ever stopped to think maybe the police is not racist? Racist. Perhaps it might be the way your attitude is and the way you're dressed. I said, I know now the police are not expected to profile anybody, but if you would change your attitude, your behavior, and your appearance, maybe they wouldn't be on you so much.
and
'Cause-
also preconceived notions, Dr. Glenn. Sometimes people pass things on one to another, and it's not true. That hasn't been your experience. Sometimes people themselves never had an experience with the police, but they just have seen what they've seen on social media. They've been passed down other negative words by other people, and it's not necessarily the truth. If you've had an experience, then you could talk from that, but you can't speak from things that you yourself have not experienced.
yeah, no, sometimes I don't refer to it a lot of times as profiling. I refer to it as perception. The police have a perception. Everybody has a perception. So if you projected a certain perception, what do you think they're going to think? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Awesome Radio. You are tuned into the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. We're going to continue this topic of discussion when we come back from this brief break. In about 10 seconds, we'll be going out to the break. So keep it locked right here to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, Smooth Radio, 100.3 Rocky Mount, 106.9 our Spanish Christian radio station. Back in a moment.
about home ownership.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show here on Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU. As we continue through this broadcast, if you are a listener listening to today and would like to call with a comment, please don't hesitate to call in. The number is 252-756-2008. We are standing by and we're waiting for your call. But be advised, when you upon your call, you will be live on the broadcast. We are a Christian station, so be mindful of your language. Here is Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams.
Yes, we want to talk about, I think, Dr. Glenn, we mentioned this before the break, that verbal skills include spoken language, and then the nonverbal communication includes body language, facial expression, and eye contact. And you know, eye contact is very important. It can tell a lot about you by how, whether you're making eye contact when people speak to you. You know, you could be talking to a person and they're not even paying attention. And the eye contact sometimes tells you right away that they're not interested. They'll be watching you for a while and then they look away. It means their mind is drifted off or they have turned you off and they're no longer listening.
I know, because you know who used to do that to me? My son had a very bad habit of doing that until I broke him out of that. I'm like, I'm talking to you, look at me. Don't look all over the other place. Look directly at me. I'm talking to you. And then when you look away, I'm like, do you hear what I'm saying? And then vice versa. Because if he's not looking at me, I don't understand a word he's saying. I said, look at me when you're talking.
That's right. Your body gestures are also important. When you meet a person with a smile, it tends to break the ice more than it does if you meet a person scolding. When we see someone that looks like they're mad, your body language tells a lot. It means that sometimes it could be the difference between being approached and not being approached by just your body language. And so it's very important to convey openness and to watch how you carry your body. A lot of times we don't pay attention, how we're doing, what are our hands doing while we're talking? Sometimes we're picking the fingernail. That's a message. That's saying something that you may be nervous or you may have some anxiety or something, in that person's presence. How are we carrying ourselves? We need to really look at that, at our body language, looking at how we position our body dependent on the situation. There's some people that they like to get very close in your face, and they like to get very, very close to you. Sometimes that conveys a message. Either they may be hard of hearing, or else they just, some people are just strange like that. They just get right up on you and you're thinking, why do they have to get on me like that? Or you automatically take a couple of steps back because you feel uncomfortable because they're getting in your personal space.
Yeah. And not only that, communicating effectively, particularly if you're going out for a job interview. You have to keep in mind or bear in mind, you have to talk to them people as if you have knowledge, not a lack thereof. So you might be born and raised in a particular part of a neighborhood. You're used to a lot of street slang and street language, street talking. But you can't project that in an interview. You have to go in there with an intelligent mind, not a street mind.
Definitely. And you're not going, or operating like you do at home. You have to put on and learn some type of professionalism when you are at a job interview. Now, a lot of times at these interviews, they may break the ice and they may make it a little bit more comfortable or a little bit more casual once they kind of discern your personality. But it also depends on the interviewer, because I've seen some that have been stiffed and stuffy the whole time. And they started the interview that way and they ended it that way. And that's how they do. So you have to be prepared for all kinds.
Well, I'll tell you one story real quick. How much time we have? I'll tell you one story real quick. So when I left law enforcement, I was working for a private security and investigation company. And I was a supervisor at a senior citizen complex. But then they wanted me to go to an interview at I'm not gonna mention the name of the company, but it's a well-known company. So a lot of things are protected because of copyright laws and all that stuff. So at the interview, they're talking to me, asking me all kinds of questions, explain this, explain that. I said, oh yeah, you're talking about proprietary information. They said, yeah, that's right. How you know that? I said, I know what proprietary information is. That's information that has to be protected because of company development and all that stuff. So it has to be protected before somebody else get their hands on it. So of course I know what proprietary information is. And they said, man, we need you on team.
Wow.
Because they thought I didn't know, but I did know.
Oh yeah, and you can't judge a book by its cover. You know, I've seen some raggedy looking covers, and the book was good. The people were good, or they could present in a way that looks is not as pleasing, but they just got the best heart. You know,
Yeah,
so you
this
can't
was
judge a book by its cover.
they had information that was very, very well protected. And speaking of that, there's a difference between something that's been Jackie, go ahead till I get this thought back on my mind.
Yeah, so you know, we were saying you can't judge a book by its cover. You know, a lot of times I would have, you know, people that would say different things, or you know, I mean, I'm just kind of calm and cool, but I have traveled the world. I've been to a lot of places, and sometimes they'll start talking to me about a certain thing, and then now I'm engaging in and telling them my experience there, and they're looking like, wow, you know, you've been to all these places. Oh, yes, I have. So you cannot judge a book by its cover. You know, people can be well cultured, they can be well traveled, and different seasons in life, you can end up in different places. But your experiences are still locked on the inside of you, and no one can take those away. So you can't judge a book by its cover. There are people that are millionaires. I mean, they have lots of money, and they're living out here like homeless people, you know, because maybe because of the state of their mind or something else that is not sitting well. So you definitely can't go by judging a book by its cover. Dr. Glenn?
That's right. We have about 40, what is that? 2.5 minutes. I'm trying to think of the word I was trying to think of. What do you call something that's secreted, and does that perhaps be protected?
I would say top secret. That's what I would say.
Well,
You know,
there's a
secret.
word. There's two words actually. Top secret, which is
Classified. I mean,
classified. That's what I'm looking for.
okay. Yes. That's what
Classified. But now, thank you very much. But there's one that's more secretive than classified. You know what that is? That's all right. Hold on. I've been just drawing blanks today for some reason.
That's all right, Dr. Glenn. So, also, how you hold your arms says a lot about you when people are talking to you. I mean, do you have them crossed across your chest? Those movements, how are you moving when you're dealing with people? You know, there's some people, they walk very swiftly, and they'll walk very swiftly, and walking swift sometimes can convey that you're angry when you're moving very quickly and very determined, you know, especially on the job, you know, when there are people that are supervisors, when you see them moving very quickly, it's like, oh, they're going after something. That may not be the case. Maybe they walk fast, but it does convey a message usually of some type of alarm. And, you know, we've seen this on many movies and comedy sketches where, especially us of people of color, where one person gets up and starts running, and then everybody else looks around and just starts running because that person is running. So body language conveys certain things. It says certain things about you. Sometimes people use hand gestures like the thumbs up to communicate that something is positive or that it's okay. Other people might not appreciate a thumbs up. They might appreciate you being able to communicate with them and say, okay, you know, this is good. You know, and Dr. Glenn, I'm just going to share this one thing that gets to me is when a person says to me, I'll ask them for something and say, where is this thing or where is that thing? And they'll say, over there. Oh, that just burns me up. Where exactly is over there? Those are not good communication skills. We need good communication skills. And so we're getting ready to come back from our break or go to another break in just a moment here. We're going to implore you to come back and enjoy the rest of our show. We have some good tips and things that we're going to be able to give you on being able to communicate effectively. This is Awesome Radio. We'll see you right back here in a moment.
Listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
We're back. We're back. You're listening to The Glenn Johnson Show. You can reach Glenn at glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. We are getting ready for our first audio clip. It's going to kind of lengthy, but bear with us. We might cut it short because we have to make some comments after the video, after the audio is played. We're going to have my engineer play the audio clip as we speak now.
I'm going to teach you 4 key steps on how to improve your communication skills, whether you're talking to just one person or a whole group of people, and so that you can feel natural, at ease, and confident. As a career strategist, I've had the honor of being able to help numerous professionals land their dream job offers. And so if this is something that you're interested in working with me one-on-one, I can definitely give you details about that at the end of this video. In my line of work, where I work with corporate professionals and help them to advance their careers, a common topic of discussion is communication. If you struggle with communication, then this may also be you, where you're in a situation where you're talking to people and you find that the conversation is very unnatural, it's forced, and it doesn't really go anywhere. And you find that the other person is struggling to hold their interest in you, and you feel that there's something wrong with you because of the way that you're communicating to them. And this can easily happen in a situation where you're at a, let's say, networking event, and you have to talk to a group of strangers where you just feel awkward, you feel unnatural, and you're not able to really develop any connections with anyone. So today I'm going to teach you 4 steps that will really help you to improve your communication skills, whether you're in a social setting or in a professional setting, and so that you can feel more confident and at ease. Step number 1, listen intently. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can communication be about listening when really it's about talking? You assume that to improve your communication skills, it's really about your ability to speak, right? Well, yes and no. The key thing about communication is that if you're able to listen intently to the other person and you're able to hear what they're really saying beyond the words that are coming out of their mouth, you're going to be able to have more value to add to the conversation, because you're going to be able to say something that is beyond what it is that they're just talking about at a surface level. Listening intently doesn't just mean using your ears and hearing what the person is saying. It's really being able to get a sense of what they're feeling. It's being able to get a sense of really what they're trying to express, and maybe what they're not trying to express as well. So it's really about using your intuition as well, being able to read a person, hear the words that are coming out of their mouth, but also hear what it is that they're really trying to mean when they're talking about that. And whenever you can really do this exercise where you're really extending yourself in a way that you're really listening and paying attention to someone, they can feel that off of you, and automatically they feel that you're more engaged with them, and they're more likely to share and to talk to you and to feel comfortable around you. And that is a key part to being a good communicator. Step number 2, respond with phrases that relate to what that person is talking about. You can start off with phrases such as, "That's interesting because I can relate, because that's true, because." Starting your conversation with these types of words shows that you're interested and engaged in the other person. And so if you want people to be engaged and interested in you when you're communicating with them, you first have to give that energy. Saying things like, "That's true because," etc., 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 shows that you can relate and you can validate what the other person is saying. And that is what, as human beings, we're all looking to do, to be validated, to be heard by other people, and to feel connected to those that we're talking to. Step number 3 to improving your communication skills: tell stories. After the because part of your conversation, tell a story that relates to what that person is talking about. The story obviously has to have a point, and it has to be something that is in relation to what you guys are discussing. As I always say, a good story follows the same pattern as a movie. Think of any good movie you've watched, and when you can break it down, there are actually 3 key parts to the movie. And I call this SAR, an acronym that stands for situation, action, and results. The majority of the movie is made up of the situation, the setting up of the story, getting to know the characters, their stories, their situations, the things that they're dealing with, the issues that they're having to go through, and the situation, the setting that they're in. The second part of the movie is the action, where the good guy fights the bad guy. So you're actually seeing what are the steps that that guy is taking or that girl is taking to resolve the initial situation or the problem that they're dealing with. And the third part of the movie is the shortest in length, and it's simply the conclusion or the result. What ended up happening? When you can learn to tell your stories using this type of structure, it's going to make the other person feel more engaged, more interested in you and in your story, and it's going to help you to prove the point that you're trying to make as well. And finally, step number 4 to improving your communication skills: practice. This is something that so many professionals seem to overlook when they're going to any networking event or meeting people for the first time, and they know that they're going to have to meet these people and talk to these people. And that is to practice. Practice ahead.
Yeah, that number 4 one was your last one. Jackie, you have any comments?
Yes, Dr. Glenn, I was actually listening that time. You know, sometimes I'm not listening. But today I was listening. And, you know, sometimes the reason that we have things that are written down that are very similar to what is often on those particular insets. And I'm not always listening because I'm always planning what I'm getting ready and I'm always getting it. And
Yeah.
I know that Dr. Glenn has put those things together. So I don't always listen, but today I was listening. And she talked about giving good responses this time.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very good to know how to respond and show interest. And especially, she talked about how to convey a message over, you know, to people. I think that one of the toughest things or hardest things is to bring things into a place where people can understand them and they can relate to them, especially when it comes to teaching the word or you instructing people with a certain thing. I mean, you could be the trainer on the job. You have to be able to make that thing plain to the person that you're training or even those that are your listening audience so that they will be able to understand and be able to relate to your topic. If you're speaking things that are over their head, then it just doesn't, I mean, we've all been in classes or something where we had to sit and listen and we were bored to death with it because it seemed like they didn't put anything interesting in it, or they didn't try to make it relatable, or they didn't try to reach their audience, or they didn't try to do anything to add any life into what they were speaking. You know, especially the lecturing type thing. Oh my goodness. I could just, I like examples. I like real life examples. I like even when people are teaching and preaching the word, I like for them to bring it out here and tell me a good story and make it relatable to something that is in my life. The word of God is relatable to what is in our life. It's not something that's distant from us, you know, ancient from all these times ago, and it doesn't apply to us. It applies to us right now. But you have to get in there and actually see and be able to, you know, interpret those things and bring it to life out here so that people can understand it and apply it to their life. Dr. Glenn?
We are still anticipating callers to call in for this very important topic on social skills. Once again, that number to call is 252-756-2008. But please call after this next break in about 1 minute.
And Dr. Glenn, I said, don't let me come to the church and go to sleep. I don't need to be in there sleeping. I don't need you to bore me to death. And I need the word. I need something that's alive for me, that's gonna reach me and that I can use the next week. Don't bore me to sleep. I don't want to come in there and take a nap. Dr. Glenn?
And if you can locate the document that explains people using phrases like and so, and speaking to people, we can share some information on that. Ladies and gentlemen, 107.5 FM, Awesome Radio, 1570 AM, WECU. You are tuned into the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivation with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. When we come from this break, we got our final audio clip, which is about 6 minutes. Then we'll make more commentary on the documents that we have in front of us. So keep it locked right here. And remember, if Awesome Radio is not on your radio just isn't on. Y'all keep it locked right here. Come back. Please give us a call, 252-756-2008. Back in a moment.
Keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show. What?
WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivation with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. We are down to our final 20 minutes of today's broadcast. I'm going to have our engineer play the second audio clip for you. Then we'll make some comments after that.
Into the meeting and just be unprepared and talk on the fly. You would want to practice ahead of time. Well,
tip number 1 is to be efficient with your speaking. Conversation is all about quality. Try to remove all types of filler words like, I guess, well, you know. These words bring no value to the conversation and they literally mean nothing. Listen to the following paragraph. What did you do this winter? Well, I had an okay time this break. I went snowboarding for the first time with some of my friends and it was actually a lot harder than it looked. That's about it. I guess I had fun. Haha. Now compared to this, what did you do this winter? Me and my friends went snowboarding. It was actually my first time and it was a lot harder than it looked. Notice how the second version is much shorter, but the information being conveyed is the exact same. However, it sounds more confident and even more sophisticated. Don't be afraid to take pauses instead of relying on filler words as a crutch. Pauses can be powerful and can emphasize different parts of the message. Here's an example of pauses in action with the same sentence that we mentioned before. Me and some friends went snowboarding. It was actually my first time, but it was a lot harder than it looked. Tip number 2 is to use pauses to emphasize different parts of the message and to deliver more powerful messages. The following skill is probably the single most important skill in terms of overall conversation ability. If you can master this one skill, you'll be able to have endless conversation with just about anybody. Tip number 3 is conversational threading. Within every sentence, there are different topics that you can branch off into. Let's take a look at the following sentence. I live in New York City, but I've always wanted to move to the suburbs. It's because I love nature and I hate being around too many people. There are 4 different topics that you can branch off from here. You can talk about that time you wanted to visit New York City. You can talk about how you feel living in the suburbs. You can talk about your relationship with nature. And you can also talk about how you're an introvert and how you can relate with their hate of being around too many people. When a conversation dies, it's usually because there are no other topics to talk about that are interesting.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to play that entire audio clip because it's rather lengthy, but he did make some mentions about certain things that I want to interject on. Um, you know, I think that is so bad in speaking. Yeah. And one of the ones that get me the most is if somebody asks somebody a question and the first word that come out of their mouth when they get ready to speak back to them is like, so what I mean is, what do you mean? What do you have to say so for? Did you say something wrong? You don't have to say so to respond to everything, every question somebody asks you. So what happened was, or what had happened was.
What had happened was.
Yeah, what had happened was, what had happened was. But certain things just irritate me, agitate me, and one of them is, yeah, and I'm saying that because I have seen public officials use that slang language. If you don't mind me calling it slang or street language. I have seen professional people at interviews, and they would say, yeah, uh, huh. That is so terrible because you're supposed to be more intellectual than that.
Definitely. And, Dr. Glenn, I had to work on my ums because one time I was just umming all the time while we were on the radio. Trying to get my words together, my mind and my words to go together. So sometimes people are doing that too because they're trying to get the mouth to
Yeah.
fit the thoughts. But
know.
then there's people that are doing it because that is just a habit for them. That's how they talk at home and they start doing it out in public. One of the things too we wanted to talk about, Dr. Glenn, was now in today's society, and the question is how does technology affect nonverbal communication? And we wanted to talk about that because that would include some of the social media things. And I want to say that there are things around now that convey nonverbal or forms of verbal communication that are nonverbal that we have now that we didn't have when I was growing up. Now we have emojis. There's a whole list of emojis that you can use while you're texting.
Yeah.
And texting is one of those places where you can definitely get some misunderstanding with a text because you do not have that person's face. You don't have their tone. You don't know how they mean it. And that's why you see a lot of beefs and arguments and different things that happen on social media because sometimes, you cannot discern how a person means a thing. And when you're looking at it or reading it, it could look like it's offensive, but they may have not meant any harm by how they said it. But, that's why the emojis are good to use there.
And I'm glad you said that because the same thing with acronyms. Like, for instance, a lot of our young people don't know what UPS actually stands for. UPS is United Parcel Service. That's different from USPS, which a lot of people get confused. USPS is different from UPS. The USPS is United States Postal Service, not parcel. Or FedEx, they don't actually know that means Federal Express.
Yes. Also, we want to, Dr. Glenn, look at facial expression because your facial expression is very important with how you convey things. How you're looking at it can tell a lot about whether you're interested in the thing or not.
Absolutely.
It can tell whether you're displeased about something. It conveys, your face can tell whether you're bored or not, or if you're listening or not listening. You're rolling your eyes up. I had to work on getting my face delivered because my face sometimes speaks when even though I haven't said anything, my face is like, wow. Or, I have to just make sure my eyes are not going up saying,
Yeah,
or
and,
going to the side.
and I'm not bashing. I'm not bashing none of our males out there, but I know males have a bad tendency of when they're talking to a female to not be looking in her face, they're looking at her chest. And she would respond, I'm up here, to get your focus on my face and not my chest. I hate to say that, but I have noticed that in a lot of males.
Yes, and then you just, just keep talking, or maybe look downward, turn your head down to where they're looking, and just bring it back up so that they can bring their eyes up to your
Yeah,
face.
but the part that got me was when this one particular female said, "I'm up here." You know what I mean,
That
Jackie?
wasn't you, Dr. Glenn, was it?
That was me.
Okay, all right now.
Well, we have 1 minute to go for the broadcast.
So express with your facial expression is very important. That's why there's so many misunderstandings, as I said before, on social media because you can't see the person's face. You have to use discernment, and be able to try to see, and that was one of the things that the particular speaker said on that particular audio. She said, is that outside of what they're saying, are you feeling how they're feeling? So that's where discernment comes in. You need to be able to discern people because there's people that can be smiling right in your face and they absolutely are hating, or they absolutely are mean, or they have the most horrible thoughts concerning you, and they'll be smiling right up in your face, looking like, like it's all good when it's not. And so you have to have discernment in this world.
And,
You have to look and see, is what's coming out of their mouth the same thing as what's coming out of their spirit.
and I know we didn't get a chance to get to all of the things that we wanted to share, particularly the constructive feedback and constructive criticism. So we'll definitely have a part two next week. And we have 40 seconds before we end today's broadcast. I- I'll let Apostle Jacqueline Cullins will take us out to the break.
Yes, Dr. Glenn, I just spoke to someone yesterday and I talked about constructive criticism. And one of the things that I said to them, and we will talk about that when we come back from this next break. I'm going to tell you what I said to them and what they said to me. And I talked about constructive criticism because I believe there's a good definition for it,
Yeah.
but we have to be careful, and it's about motives. We'll be right back from this break. Hang on there and come on back with us. This is Awesome Radio.
RIVES.com.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to Awesome Radio, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. I will take this opportunity to apologize to everyone because I thought we had reached our final 10 minutes previously. But now this is our final 10 minutes. And without any further delay, I'm going to go back to my co-host, Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. Uh, constructive feedback, constructive criticism.
Yeah, so Dr. Glenn, what I was saying to this individual just yesterday was it's the motive for criticism. Why are you criticizing that person? Are your words meant to tear them down? When it is constructive criticism, it is something to build them up. It is to tell them or show them a corrective action that they've made a mistake, but also show them a better way of doing it. That is to build up and to construct. Remember, the word is constructive criticism. It's to help that person grow and to help them be better. And what I was saying to this young person was, I said, it's how you present things. The world used to have a song that says, it ain't what you do, it's how you do it. And so sometimes it's how you do a thing that makes all the difference. And so I said to them, and I've often used this example when I've taught for many years, is that you could take this beautiful cake and bake it and decorate it and put all these great ingredients in it. And then you can go outside and get the garbage can lid and put that cake on it. Nobody is going to want to eat the cake that came off of the garbage can lid. As a matter of fact, they'll try a dry, nasty cake that is presented well over a cake that is presented on a garbage can lid. So it's not what you do. Sometimes it's how you do it. It's how you present a thing that makes the whole difference. So, and this is what I was saying to them, in constructive criticism and trying to build them up in how they react and how they communicate with other people.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I highlighted is that it says, don't let your emotions get the better of you as criticism levied while you are angry, disappointed, or frustrated may lose its message.
Definitely. And if somebody is giving you, and the world uses that word energy, that type of negative energy, how you respond to it, especially when you are naming the name of Christ. They start cussing and you done started cussing just as bad as they are, then people, they don't want to hear your message because they know you're not mature enough to handle bad situations. Sometimes silence and cutting it off, especially on social media and those particular platforms, the block button is real good. The block button is deliverance. You can block them and not have anything else to say to them because they're not speaking with intelligence. And so it's one of the places where there can be a free-for-all for people to think that they could just say whatever they want to say. But you have to watch your mouth because sometimes you're putting a thing out there or you're saying something and you're defaming somebody's character. And you don't even know that person. You have to watch your mouth. You can even be sued. You can even have some legal action come against you because of how you just thought you can open your mouth and say whatever you want on social media. One of the scriptures that I wanted to say, Dr. Glenn, is Proverbs 18:13. And it says to answer before listening to that is folly and shame. Don't answer before listening. Find out the details. Find out what is going on. Sometimes it could be a simple mistake. And have just have this thing in your mind and you already have it figured out in your mind, but you don't have the details. It's only a fool that would try to answer before listening or hearing the matter.
Essentially, don't jump to conclusions.
Jump to conclusions and don't take anybody's word because sometimes people, they're biased on one side and they're the one that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
And then here they come with the whole story and they're the one that's wrong.
That's right.
The whole time. So don't jump to any conclusions. Wait till you hear both sides of the story.
And what was that scripture again?
It is Proverbs 18:13. To answer before listening, that is folly and a shame. Yes. And also Ephesians 4:29. Don't let any, and I believe that the King James says, corrupt communication come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And I believe in the King James, it writes it a little different, and that's the way that I remember it. But it's talking about helping those, or that your words, it says in one particular text, let your words be with grace, seasoned with salt. That means that it's tasty. When salt is on something, it tastes good. Something that's saltless, especially meat when you're trying to cook it, that's a mess.
Now we have about 4 minutes remaining. I want to make one brief comment. Then I'll let Apostle Jacqueline Cullins in today's broadcast. And that is, I think as we move forward, we should look forward to encouraging everyone to get away from these electronic devices if they can, to communicate with people. Have open verbal conversations to get back acclimated with speaking to each other instead of sending you a text. I'll send you a text. No, I want you to talk to me verbally with your mouth.
Yes.
Not through a text message.
Yes. And another thing, I want to say this before we end the broadcast, A closed mouth doesn't get help. You can't assume that people know what's going on with you. You need to tell them. If you're depressed, you need to say, I'm feeling some depression, and I need to talk to you, or reach out to people and let them know what's happening. People can't always discern what's going on with you, especially when you're the silent type anyways, and you go through seasons where you're sitting in silence. People, they just think that you're off being silent. They may not even know that you need help. But an open mouth doesn't get help. I mean, the closed mouth doesn't get help. The open mouth is the one that gets the help. Dr. Glenn?
Absolutely. And as I said previously, I know that we wasn't going to have time for all of the documents and information that we want to share with you. So we'll definitely do part 2 next week to cover some other important areas, including communication skills and autism.
Yes, definitely.
Since that's something you're familiar with.
It is something I'm not an expert now, but I'm familiar.
I know.
No one's an expert with it, but we are familiar with it. And we could definitely talk about some things. And we can also in the future bring a guest that I've talked about for the last few years to talk to you about autism in her particular situation.
All right, let's try to do that. See if we can add her in there for next week, part 2.
Yes, and definitely, Dr. Glenn, this area here is a high autism area. There's a lot of kids with autism in this area. I've looked it up and I've looked at the statistics. So there's a lot of kids. I mean, even we have new schools being built in the area because there's such a high number of autistic kids that need services.
Yeah, and I do have a lot more to say, but we are wound down to our final 2 minutes, so I'm going to let Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams have those 2 minutes in today's broadcast. Jackie.
Yes, we want to come back on next week, and I said, there it is. I got to get rid of it, Dr. Glenn. I said, I want to work on my communication skills. It can be such a habit to do it, and we can do it so easily until we don't even notice that we're doing it, and it's a part of our conversation. So we have to clean that up. We all can grow. We can all begin to develop more and go higher in our communication skills, our social skills, interpersonal skills, and how we deal with others. We have not arrived. Sometimes we can have certain things that we have go on in our life, and we do it as habits, and we don't realize that it's something that we need to grow out of and get rid of. So I love the fact that we have the opportunity that when we wake up every day, we got a new grace and a new mercy. We have a new chance to get it right. And so I want to say to our listeners out there on today, if you've heard some things here that benefit you, take it on and use it, and don't look at it as something that is too difficult to do. Dr. Glenn?
I'll just say one final thing on that end to all of our young males and females. If you are one of those individuals that have negative connotation with law enforcement, think about changing your social skills. Think about using a different type of language. Thinking about speaking to them more intelligently, or changing your appearance. And don't be so negative about law enforcement. I'm asking you to do that for yourself, for us, and for others. Thank you very much. Jackie.
Hey, Dr. Glenn, we're going to come right back here next week, and we are looking forward to continuing with this topic. We're going to have a part 2 on next week, and so come on back here. This is Awesome Radio. We want you to tune in, and we'll see you on next week. God bless.
Thank you, everybody.